Hello, everyone. I am Sable, the host of Full Out Healing, where I share my healing journey as a survivor and really all the sticky, icky shame of it all and all of those things that have come up along the way. Today is 100 Days of Truth, day 34. And today's episode 26, is going to be another healing tool of the day. And this healing tool, this is something I wish I could go back in time and give myself, but I know the journey created it, so it is what it is. But the healing tool of the day is forgiving the me that was in an abusive relationship. So I'm going to talk about the dilemma that brings up the need for this tool, my old strategy for how I used to deal with this dilemma, the moment of surrender that caused the shift, my new strategy, what that new strategy does for me, and of course, I always end with an invitation. So let's get into it. So the dilemma that has kind of brought this up is really feeling overwhelmed about the consequences of the abuse in my daily life. And it's kind of ongoing in the sense of the further I progress in my healing journey, the more my awareness shifts about things and like my narratives change. And that brings sort of like its own sort of, I guess, wave of emotions. But an example of, some of the consequences of abuse that has impacted in my life has, been with my business and my finances and even my housing, honestly, and like even more importantly than that, my ability to act on my desires immediately, like the moment I connect to it. There's just so much repair that I'm doing within myself and within my life that, I'm really in a space where I have to rebuild. And so sometimes just the pace of it all and the overwhelm of it is really what kind of brings up the need for this strategy. Because my old strategy, the old way I would deal with this dilemma is I would sort of slide into shaming myself for letting it happen and really shaming myself for my own role in the abuse. That would then lead to sort of ruminating about how my life would be different had I made different choices. And it all comes down to thinking I'd be further along. If this didn't happen, if I had gotten myself out sooner or had dealt with it in a different way, asked for help, talk to somebody, all of the things that I sort of like put blame and shame on myself for. And then because I think so much about what could have been for myself, how much further along that I could be, I sort of then get angry at the old me because I have this hyper sense of awareness of what I've lost or like what I've imagined that I've lost. And I feel like the old me took that away from the me that I am now. And part of that just and another layer of this old strategy is really placing value on the choices I made in the past as wrong. And so it's just like a really tricky place to be because at the end of the day, I am hardcore judging and shaming my former self. And it's really hard to like have a positive, empowered relationship with yourself in the present if that's how you're treating your past. And I don't know about you, I'm speaking for me. The math doesn't math on that. It's just being mad at my former self didn't really support me today, or it doesn't support me today. But that was my strategy for it, shame myself, shame my former selves, and be like, look what you did. My moment of surrender, now I have to be honest because as I referenced earlier, this is kind of still ongoing. The nature of this healing journey for me has been requiring, like, I'm just in a place where I need to keep forgiving myself until I don't need to anymore. And the reason why I need to keep forgiving myself is because I've, find myself in little shame pockets now and then. But what I will do is I will share these three particular things that I think help facilitating moments of surrender, and are facilitating or are supporting me in having a new strategy and relating to the moments of challenge where I'm overwhelmed by the consequence of abuse, right? So the first big thing that has kind of led to this moment of surrender is actually therapy. I had a kick-ass therapist, and I've had lots. I didn't just have a therapist; I had a counselor, all this other stuff. But with my therapist, I was able to make the connection and realize that actually, when I'm in the present, I always believe, like, I have an understanding with myself that I make the best choices I can based off of what I have access to, which is really, it was a really powerful thing to remember that about myself, because for whatever reason, I have this disconnect between like my present and the past. And I think whenever things don't work out in the way that I wanted it to, or when I'm experiencing any type of difficulty, challenge, or conflict, it's like blame the old Sable, right? But that old Sable, something that has always been true about every version of me that has ever existed, is that I always make the best choice for me based off of what I have access to in the moment. I really do believe that, and therapy kind of helped me sort of like resurface that understanding, and at the very least help make the shame and judgment crack a little bit, because it cracked enough to open up a doubt that was like, okay, you really do get this about yourself. Then how does this shame and judgment work then, if this is genuinely true? It opens up just enough to question the seemingly like solid shame, or the seeming truth of the shame. The next thing that has really helped in this moment of surrender was last summer I did a program, or embarked on a journey called Rites of Passage with Ayanla Van Zandt, and it was really like a lot of like it wasn't just inner child or inner girlhood work. It was like inner every stage of your life, girl. And as it relates to feminine energy, a lot of shadow work and a lot of other things. But I mention all of that to say that doing that healing work in that supportive container helped me realize I didn't have access to a lot. So the therapy helped me realize I make the best choices based off of what I have access to. And then this experience helped me realize I haven't had access to a lot. Like a lot of just thinking about the beliefs and narratives and understanding about yourself and your worthiness. Like I do think those are prerequisites in order to be able to choose and create a life that is self-serving. I recognize I didn't have a lot, and oddly enough, recognizing what I didn't have, what I didn't grow up with and carry into my adulthood, actually opened the door of a lot of like self-compassion, and like it helped ease the judgment on me a lot more, because one of the judgments and shame pieces that I held about myself was, like, you should have known better, the statistics are which that's a whole nother episode talking about statistic shame. But it really helped me relax on the shoulds of the judgments I held towards myself, because it's like, really, what should a girl who, what should a little Black girl who carried the meaning that she isn't worthy and is not lovable and doesn't deserve to take space and is a burden, what's fair? What's a fair judgment on a little Black girl from the Bronx like that, you know? And not to say that that explains everything. As I'm rebuilding my own sense of worthiness and deservingness, and recognizing that it's always been there, it's never been a question. And as I've been wonderfully astonished by the expansiveness that owning my worthiness has brought into my life, I'm realizing, like, damn, like, it's crazy the shit I wanted to do without it. Like, there was a glass ceiling, legit, there's a ceiling for me in my life of what I could have done while carrying around a deep inherent sense of unworthiness. And that's, it's a prerequisite. The next thing that I'll share that is kind of supported this moment of surrender was I was listening to this like healing podcast, and the interviewer, who is a therapist practitioner, was interviewing someone in her field, a similar position, and they were talking about polyvagal theory and dorsal shutdown. And I'd never heard of it before that podcast, but they were talking about dorsal shutdown as like a nervous system response that our conscious mind does not have control over or access to. And it's something the nervous system does to save ourselves. And what's unique about it is that it falls entirely outside of the societal accepted norms for survival behavior, in the sense that it's beyond fight or flight. It's something in its own category. And dorsal shutdown is, like your nervous system taking in all the information it has access to, makes a decision to shut down in some way, shape, or form, because that is its assessment of like how it can keep you safe and alive. And I realized that one, I felt incredibly seen by this podcast and understanding dorsal shutdown and polyvagal theory. I felt kind of relieved because I had been judging my survival response. I didn't even recognize it as a survival response. I recognized it as this is why you deserve shame response. But learning about this helped me realize that my nervous system chose the best option for my safety. And not only did she choose the best option for my safety, she fucking succeeded. Like, I'm alive. Like, she kept me alive. And not only that, my internalized judgment of what society accepts as survival behavior is none of her business, has nothing to do with her capacity, my nervous system's capacity to keep me safe. Like, it's literally irrelevant. The job was done and it succeeded, which means how I judge it, that's its own separate thing. And so really all of these three things have sort of coalesced in this moment of surrender, which has led me to my new strategy, which is forgiving the me that was in an abusive relationship. And these are the parts of this new strategy. First, I remind myself I did the best I could with what I had. And not only that, the best that I could do, it kept me alive. My best kept me alive, and that fucking matters. And I needed to say that to myself and let it ground, because there's so much, like, the bigger picture is that I'm alive, and that really sort of helps me disconnect from all of the shame and the judgment I internalize and put on myself. The next thing I like to remind myself is that I didn't miss anything that was meant for me. I cannot miss anything that is meant for me. I never will, and I never have. It's not possible. Everything that is meant for me will happen for me when it's meant to happen. And I think this is a big one, because that really had to I had to settle into, because it's almost as if the shame and judgment I put on myself for being in an abusive relationship created like a false FOMO of my own life, of my own, what could have been, maybe like my own alternate timeline for you sci-fi girlies. And it has been really easy for me to be wrapped up in that. And it just paralyzes me and makes me, it just, in the space of missing what could have been, I miss the power of my now, and like the power that I've always have. Another part of this new strategy is I tell myself I get to rebuild my life in a way that truly centers me. Like, actually, I am the center of my own life. All of the choices I make are about putting me at the center of my own life. And I think about that and how I get to do that. And I think about what I had been walking through in life with up until this point. And I realize what I inherited, the meaning that I made of myself in this world as a child, it had to fall apart. It had to fall apart. That meaning and what I inherited is never compatible with the power and the greatness within me. That it just is a part of my story to discovering myself and really owning that. And I'm gonna get a little woo-woo, because this healing journey has been surprisingly spiritual, which I didn't expect that. But I really do recognize part of accepting that, like, what I inherited and made meaning of as a child had to fall apart. Also comes with me. I tell myself and I remind myself that, like, my soul's assignment has been, is based on this, like, inheritance of generational patterns, traumas, what have you. And because it's based off of those generational and really ancestral wounds and patterns, like, I recognize that, like, I am the one to break these. And I also remind myself, that's why it's so fucking hard, Sable. It's not just your shit. It's my shit, my mother's shit, my grandmother's shit, and everyone else beforehand on both sides, like, it is truly breaking out and starting something new that has never been seen before within the context of my family and my life. And that's why it's so fucking hard. So it's like which is really important, because as I told you, the dilemma that I talk about is the overwhelm around the consequences of abuse in my present life, right? And I'm not gonna lie, some days are really fucking hard. Like, I still have hard days, and my hard days today are still better than the best days I ever had in that abusive relationship. And my hard days today are still the best days of my life now, because I still feel so aware and so connected to what's possible for me and what I deserve. My hard days are still my best days, because I know that I am worthy and I am deserving and I am lovable, and abundance is my divine birthright. And I know all of that is coming for me. And my hard days are hard because I get overwhelmed and frustrated that I don't see that I don't see the physical manifestation of those things in the way that I want or I think it should look like. And like it's more of like impatience, it's not like will it ever come? It's like can we hurry up now, please? I'm over this. But apparently there are more lessons for me here, henceforth my presence in the here now. But yeah, that's my new strategy. To recap, I remind myself I did the best I could with what I have. I remind myself I can't miss nothing that is meant for me. And I remind myself the beautiful opportunity of being alive is that I get to rebuild my life with me at the center. No more of this, like, I'm fifth choice in my own life. Like, I actually get to come first, and which feels like such a celebration and a victory and a milestone, because the idea of putting myself first, like, I remember a time in my life where that made me so uncomfortable. Like, I literally felt selfish. I took on that trait and I looked for things outside of me to prove that I wasn't. And I don't feel that way anymore. And that's a fucking blessing, because so many things feel possible and with me on my own side now. It's like I was just like the last one to get in line. And yeah, I could go on a tangent, but I won't. I'll leave it at that. Now, what this has done for me is it really does help with acceptance of my life, acceptance of this, acceptance of the abuse, and acceptance of the impact it's had. That doesn't mean I'm okay with it. That doesn't mean I'm grateful for it. It means that acceptance is just a gift to me, because once I can accept something, like, I stop fighting it. And if I'm not fighting it, I take all this power and energy towards creating what I actually want. And I've resisted a lot of things for so long. And acceptance allows me to just reclaim my power towards what I do want in my life. Another thing forgiving the me that was in an abusive relationship does is it really strengthens my inner peace. I just have like this inner core of peace that can't be rocked or moved. And when I practice forgiving myself, it's just like some of the frayed energy that was around that inner peace, solid foundation that I've created, it just kind of goes away. And and then the inner peace expands just a little bit more. And it makes strengthening that inner peace makes the consequences of the abuse in my life feel more insignificant. And like, yes, I can have experiencing these consequences and trying to rebuild my life from it, but you can't take my joy in the present, in the day and now. And so it's kind of like, not only does it strengthen my inner peace, it gives me access to joy for myself today, which is wonderful. The next thing it does is it really does help me release regret. And because, not forgiving myself is filled with regrets. And by releasing regret, it kind of releases my sense of powerlessness as well, which is a really big thing. Part of, and I think being angry is important. I'm never going to knock on anger. And because I think anger helps protect yourself. Anger helps protect me. And there's something about regret that it just feels like it would take away my power, mostly because I can't go back in time. Like, it's all about focusing on shit I can't do. So forgiving myself just allows me to be more in the present. And I have power in the present. The past is done. My power is in the here and now. Which brings me to this strategy helps me find power in my own rewritten story. It goes from like the story, my life goes from the story of this fucked up thing I survived to here's a story of how I chose me, and here's a story of my self-discovery. Like, this is a story of how I found myself and made and created everything I wanted for me. And there's just something about it that feels so powerful and expansive, which is the opposite of how shame makes me feel. So I really like the power in my own rewritten story. It just feels yummy. Like I'll think on other adjectives, but it just feels like on a gut level, it just feels fucking good. And most importantly, the dilemma that brought this up is overwhelm and frustration about the consequences of abuse. Forgiving myself for the me that was in the abusive relationship increases my belief in my ability to make it, to create something different for myself. Because when I forgive myself, I stop telling myself conspiracy theories about who I am, what I'm capable of, what's true about me, and I start telling myself the truth. And when I really sit in the truth of who I am, I get goosebumps and I'm like, damn, I can and I will do so much, and it's already happening in ways you can't even imagine. So that's another reason why I love using this strategy. Now, I guess I'll end with an invitation to you. I invite you to forgive yourself. Forgive the versions of you that were in an abusive relationship. Try it out. Like, how does it feel? What do you notice about yourself as you try to remind yourself you did the best that you could? Remind yourself that you can't miss what's meant for you, and really connect to what you get to do in the here and now. Now, this is simply just an invitation, and once you do all those things, reflect on what you realize. This is just an invitation. If you're not there yet, then literally fuck everything I just said. That's fine. It definitely took me a moment to be here. And also forgiveness it's tough. Forgiveness is hard because of it. I'll speak to me why forgiveness is hard. Forgiveness is hard because sometimes it feels like I live in a world with no justice. Forgiveness is hard because of all the fucked up messages around forgiveness are about forgiving other people, or about creating this false sense of withholding something if you don't forgive someone else without any sort of reparations. Basically, forgiveness has been co-opted, warped, and given a bad rap. So if you just see this F word and you're like, F that, I honor you. Be in that space. And if you think that if you want to support with accepting what you've experienced, if you want more inner peace, if you want to find power in your own story, and try it on, see what it does for you, and if it doesn't, that's cool. I respect that. And if it does, let me know. Either way, subscribe, comment, let me know your experience with this healing tool, whether you've done it before, whether you're trying it out, or whether you're not today, Sable. Either way is okay. Thank you so much for joining me. It's great to be back on Full Out Healing. This was episode 26, and I can't wait to see y'all tomorrow. Bye.